Hey guys, before we get into today's video, just a quick heads up. If you want to support me and get access to my exclusive members-only content, you can join my Patreon. I post some extra stuff there that you won't find here on YouTube. The link is in the description. Alright, let's get into the video. I never planned to love a man everyone else prayed to never meet. I wanted a quiet life, a cheap apartment, and the kind of worries that end when you close your eyes at night. But that night, under 100 golden lights, every eye in the ballroom followed us as the orchestra began to play, and I felt my whole life sliding into a world I had only seen from the outside. The marble floor was so polished it looked like still water, reflecting crystal chandeliers and men in white suits who smiled with their mouths but not with their eyes. My dress felt too tight around my ribs, my pulse too loud in my ears. Somewhere behind me, glass clinked, someone laughed a little too hard, and the scent of expensive perfume could not hide the smell of fear I carried in my own skin. He was already standing at the center of the room, waiting for me. White suit, white shirt, white tie, like he was daring the universe to put blood on him. His hair fell in dark waves to his shoulders, his beard trimmed but wild enough to soften the scars that crossed his forehead and cheek. The room quieted in a way that had nothing to do with music. Conversations broke off mid-sentence. A path opened through the crowd, not out of respect but out of calculation. That's when I understood. They were not guests, they were witnesses. He extended his hand toward me, and for a second I thought I saw it tremble, just a little. I slipped my fingers into his, and his palm was warm, rough, calloused, not the hand of a businessman like everyone pretended he was. His eyes met mine, dark, sharp, and to my surprise, tired. Not weak, not soft, just tired, like a man who hadn't slept in years. "We're on stage now," he murmured, the corner of his mouth twitching as if he wanted to smile but couldn't quite remember how. "You ready, esposa?" The word wife rolled off his tongue like it didn't belong to him, like it was a suit he was trying on for the first time. The first notes of the waltz floated into the air. His hand slid to the small of my back, steady, careful, leaving just enough space to be polite, close enough that the room believed the lie. I expected his grip to be hard, possessive. Instead, it was firm but gentle, as if he was afraid he might bruise me. He led with quiet confidence, guiding me through the first slow turns. I could feel a dozen stares burning into my skin. My family on one side, his men on the other, enemies and allies dressed the same, their differences hidden under silk and gold. Up close, he looked different from the monster I had imagined in the dark. The scars on his face weren't trophies, they were history. A thin white line above his brow, a deeper one cutting across his cheek toward his ear. One of them pulled slightly when he swallowed, as if even that small act hurt. His jaw was set tight, like he was holding something back. Anger, fear, regret, I didn't know yet. I just knew that for a man everyone called untouchable, he seemed strangely breakable from this distance. "You're shaking," he said quietly, turning us so our backs faced the crowd. From the outside, we probably looked like a perfect wedding picture, husband and wife lost in their own world. Only my fingers digging into his shoulder told the truth. "I didn't want this," I breathed, my lips barely moving. "Any of it." "I know," his voice was low, almost swallowed by the music. "Neither did I, but here we are." I looked up at him, surprised. You had a choice." His eyes flicked toward the tables where our families sat, then back to mine. "You think men like me really have choices?" he asked. "I do what I must so people I care about stay alive. Tonight, that includes you." The words didn't match the stories I'd heard, the ones whispered behind closed doors about bodies in rivers and debts paid in blood. Yet there was something in his tone, a quiet sincerity that didn't ask me to believe, just to listen. A softness hidden under the armor. For a second, I saw not the legend, but the man trapped inside it. He turned again. I caught sight of my brother near the bar, jaw clenched, hands balled into fists at his sides. Our uncle at his shoulder, expression flat, eyes cold. On the other side, my new husband's men stood like marble statues in white suits, but their jackets hung just a little too heavy on one side. A bulge here, a shadow there. No one was truly unarmed, no one was truly relaxed. This was not just a wedding, this was a treaty balanced on crystal glasses and porcelain plates. "If this doesn't work," I whispered, "they'll blame us." "If this doesn't work," he replied, "there won't be anyone left to blame." His honesty hit me harder than any lie could have. I realized then that we were both shields, not just bride and groom. I was here so my family could say they trusted him. He was here so his enemies could get close enough to study his face, his manner, his weaknesses. The music swelled, and for 3 minutes our lives were nothing but a performance for people who'd kill us both if the script changed. He spun me, drawing me back into his chest, one arm wrapping around me a little tighter this time, as if he felt the same invisible knives pressing in from every side. My hand brushed the inside of his wrist, and I felt the faint, fast beat of his pulse. The most feared man in the city had a heartbeat just as fragile as mine. "Listen," he said softly, his breath warm against my ear. "Whatever you've heard about me, remember this. I will never be your enemy, not in this house, not in this life. I can't promise you happiness, but I can promise you protection." I wanted to ask, protection from who? From them or from you? But the question burned on my tongue unsaid. As he drew me a little farther from the center, closer to the shadow of a massive chandelier, something caught my eye. A tiny, perfect red circle appeared on his forehead just above the deepest scar. At first I thought it was a reflection, a trick of the crystal and gold. But as we moved, as he turned, the dot stayed exactly there, steady, unblinking. My stomach dropped, the room blurred at the edges. The musicians kept playing, bows gliding, fingers dancing over piano keys, completely unaware that death had entered the dance. I forced myself not to freeze, not to stare. My gaze slid upward for a fraction of a second, to the balcony lined with carved stone and shadows too dark for such a bright room. Somewhere up there, hidden beyond the lights, someone had a rifle aimed at the man in my arms. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as dust. If I screamed, if I broke the illusion, panic would explode, blood would spill. Maybe my brother would die, maybe I would. Maybe he would, and the war we were trying to end would turn into something worse. So I did the only thing I could. I lifted my chin, pretending to be a bride leaning in for a romantic whisper. My lips brushed his ear, my voice steady in a way my heart was not. "Dance as my husband," I murmured. "There's a red dot on your forehead." His steps faltered for half a heartbeat. His eyes, when they met mine, were suddenly razor-sharp, all softness gone. The music soared around us, the crowd watched, clueless and hungry, and in that thin slice of time between one note and the next, I felt the whole room holding its breath, waiting to see if the devil himself would live or die in my arms. By the way, if you're enjoying this video and want to see more exclusive content, don't forget to check out my Patreon. There's members-only content waiting for you over there, and your support really helps me keep making more videos. The link is in the description. His fingers tightened around my waist, but his steps never broke. To anyone watching, we were just two newlyweds lost in the music. Only I could feel the sudden tension in his body, the way his muscles coiled like a man standing on the edge of a cliff. "Don't look up," he breathed, barely moving his lips. "Smile for them, cry inside, but keep moving." The red dot trembled slightly as we turned. My throat closed. My body wanted to freeze, to scream, to drag him down behind the nearest pillar. Instead, I did what he asked. I smiled. My cheeks burned with the effort, but I smiled. He shifted his hold, spinning me outward, then pulling me back in. The room twisted around us in gold and white and shadow. With every turn, he angled his head, testing the line of the dot. I felt his chest rise and fall against mine, steady but deliberate, like he was forcing himself to stay calm. "Left balcony," he murmured. "Near the third pillar, don't react." He counted the steps under his breath, not for the dance, but like he was mapping the room. On the next turn, his gaze flicked over my shoulder. The dot jerked for a second, then settled on his temple. Too close, too perfect. My fingers dug into his lapel. "What do we do?" I whispered. For the first time tonight, the ghost of a real smile touched his eyes. "You already did it. You warned me, now you trust me." He guided us closer to the center of the floor, where the chandelier above us exploded with crystals and light. The dot slid higher on his forehead, then disappeared in the glare. My heart jumped, thinking it was gone. Then I saw it again, trembling, searching for him. "Good," he murmured. "They're nervous." He turned his head so the dot crossed from his forehead to the curve of my hair. For one breath, it rested at my temple. My vision swam. "You're using me as a shield," I hissed. "I'm using us as bait," he said calmly. "There's a difference, look at my right hand." I forced my eyes down. His hand, resting at my waist, tapped slowly against my back. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps, pause, a pattern, a signal. Across the room, one of his men in a white suit set down a champagne glass and touched his ear. Code, orders, a silent war happening right in front of the band. "On the last note," he said softly, "you're going to lean your head against my chest like you're overwhelmed. Close your eyes, no matter what you hear, don't look." "What do you mean, what I hear?" I asked, voice cracking. His eyes met mine, dark and steady. There was no bravado there, no arrogance, just a tired resolve. "Someone planned to end this night with a funeral instead of a marriage," he said. "I won't give them both." The music began to swell toward its end. The crowd watched us, enchanted, unaware that death was lining up its shot above their heads. My lungs ached. The red dot trembled on his brow again, like the sight of a tiny, hungry animal that had finally found its target. 3, he counted under his breath. 2, 1. The final note hit. The ballroom burst into applause. I let my head fall against his chest. Everything went black behind my closed lids. A single crack split the air. Not the thunder of a rifle, the shatter of glass. A woman screamed, someone cursed in Spanish. Another shot, this one muffled, closer. Heavy footsteps pounded on marble somewhere above us. "Keep your eyes closed," he said, voice low and calm, his hand heavy on the back of my head, sheltering me. I felt him turn, shielding me with his body as chaos tried to rise, and then... "Music," he barked, his voice suddenly sharp, commanding. The band, trained, terrified, obeyed. Another song started, too loud and too fast for the moment. The crowd hesitated, caught between fear and confusion. His men moved like pieces on a board, closing off exits, flowing toward the stairs to the balcony, hands inside their jackets, faces strangely calm. "Walk with me," he whispered, slow, like nothing happened. My legs felt like glass, but they obeyed as he led me off the dance floor. I opened my eyes only when he allowed it. The chandelier above us was missing one crystal strand, swinging slightly. On the far side of the room, 2 of his men were dragging someone down the staircase from the balcony, a struggling figure in a server's black uniform, arms pinned, head down. My heart snapped into my throat. The man's head lifted for a second. I saw his face. "My brother." "No," I whispered, the word ripping out of me. "No, no, no." I tore away from my husband and ran toward them. Hands reached to stop me, but one quiet gesture from him froze them in place. My heels skidded on marble as I dropped in front of my brother, breathless. His lip was split, one eye already darkening. He glared up, wild and defiant, not at the men holding him, at my husband. "You should have let me finish the job," he spat, blood at the corner of his mouth. "I almost had you." The room inhaled as one, my ears rang. "You were going to kill him," I choked, "at my wedding." "For you," he snapped, "for us, for Papa. Do you think I forgot who put him in the ground?" I turned, looking at the man in white, the Mafia boss, my husband, the monster I had married to keep my family alive. He watched my brother with a strange expression, not anger, not surprise, something closer to sadness. "Tell her," my brother shouted, fighting the grip on his arms. "Tell her how he died, tell her what you did." My husband sighed softly, then stepped closer. His men shifted around him like a living shield. He ignored them. "I did not kill your father," he said, voice calm but carrying. "I killed the man who ordered the hit on my sister. Your father arranged it. Your uncle pulled the trigger. Different nights, same street, same excuses." My gaze snapped to my uncle across the room. His face had gone pale, his hand frozen around a glass. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes, not of getting caught, but of losing control. "You're lying," my brother hissed. "He's not," my husband said quietly. "The bullet that killed your father came from the North Pier. My men never touch that place, but your uncles do." The room shifted its focus. Dozens of eyes turned to my uncle. His glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. "This is ridiculous," my uncle said, but his voice shook. "He's twisting." "Search him," my husband ordered. 3 of his men moved before my uncle could finish his sentence. They took the gun from his waistband, the phone from his pocket, the extra magazine hidden under his belt. One of them held up the phone. On the screen, a single message glowed. "If you miss, we blame him. War continues. No survivors this time." The sender's name was one I recognized. A rival capo, an enemy, an ally, it didn't matter anymore. The truth settled like ash over everything I thought I knew. My brother sagged in their grip, the fight draining out of him. You said he killed Papa," he whispered to our uncle. "You showed me the photo." "I showed you what I needed you to see," my uncle snapped, panic cracking his voice. "You were always too soft, she was always too soft. I had to make men out of you." My husband's jaw tightened, old anger flickering in his eyes, but he didn't look at my uncle, he looked at me. "This is how it works," he said softly for my ears but loud enough for the room. "One lie, one bullet, then another to answer it, and we all call it fate." His men waited for his order. One word from him and my uncle would disappear. My brother too, maybe my whole family. This was the man I had married, a man who could end a life with a nod. I stepped between my brother and my uncle, heartbeat roaring in my ears. I could feel every gaze on my back, every tremor in the air. "No one dies tonight," I said. Silence. My husband's eyes locked on mine. There was power there and something else, respect. "If I let him live," he said, nodding toward my uncle, "he will never stop. Men like him don't understand peace. They only understand fear." "Then let him fear something new," I answered, my voice shaking but louder now. "Let him fear the day we stop playing by his rules." The words surprised even me. They didn't sound like the girl who walked into this ballroom praying to survive. They sounded like someone who had finally had enough of burying people she loved. His gaze searched my face as if weighing not just my words but my soul. Then he turned to his men. "Take the uncle away," he ordered. "No blood, no marks. I want him alive, talking and in a cell so deep he forgets the taste of fresh air. He answers to me now and to her." "And my brother," I whispered. My husband looked at him for a long moment. "He tried to kill me," he said slowly. "At my own wedding. In my world there's only one penalty for that." My chest clenched. I moved closer to my brother, ready to throw myself in front of him if I had to, ready to become a widow and a sister in the same breath. Then my husband did something no one in that room expected. He exhaled like a man setting down a weight he'd carried too long. "But tonight," he said, voice steady, "I answer to my wife." He stepped forward and reached out. Every instinct in my brother made him flinch. Instead of striking, my husband took the folded rifle strap from his shoulder and handed it to one of his men. "Release him," he said. His men hesitated. One of them whispered, "Boss." I said, my husband repeated, eyes never leaving mine, "Release him." They let go. My brother stumbled, catching himself. He stared at the man he had tried to kill, the man who should have ordered his death, and found only exhaustion and a strange, quiet mercy. "You don't deserve this," my husband told him. "But your sister does, so you live. You live with what you almost became. You live long enough to help her clean the mess our elders made." He turned to the room, his voice rolling out like distant thunder. "Everyone hear me clearly," he said. "There was an attempt on my life tonight, by my own family and by hers. That is how deep the rot goes, but there will be no war, no revenge. No more fathers and sisters and sons left bleeding on sidewalks for someone else's pride." He took my hand and raised it so everyone could see. "This woman walked into my world as a sacrifice," he said. "She warned me instead of letting me die. She stood between my gun and her blood. That kind of courage, that's the only thing that scares me, and it's the only thing that might save us." He looked at his men, at my trembling relatives, at the enemies dressed as friends along the walls. "From tonight," he declared, "if you follow me, understand this, we protect, we don't provoke. We trade, we build, we keep our streets clean. You want war, you don't stand under my roof. You want peace, you answer to her as much as to me." A murmur rippled through the crowd, confusion, relief, quiet defiance, but no one moved against him, not one. Later, after the guests drifted away, after my uncle was taken and my brother sat in a quiet room with shaking hands and red eyes, he and I stood alone on the empty dance floor. The lights were softer now. The music had stopped. The room smelled of wax and wilted flowers and something new, possibility. "You changed the rules," I said. He gave a tired half smile. "You changed them first, when you whispered about the red dot instead of letting it do what it was meant to do." I stepped closer, studying his face. The dot was gone, but the memory of it burned brighter than the scar underneath. I reached up and gently touched that scar, the one the sight had rested on. "Were you afraid?" I asked. He thought for a moment. "I was afraid you'd regret saving me," he admitted. "I don't," I said, and it was true. We stood there, two people pulled into a marriage for reasons older and uglier than either of us. A mafia boss and the girl who was supposed to be his shield. But in that quiet moment, under the fading lights, it felt like something else. Two survivors deciding what to do with the life they still had. "I can't promise to be a good man overnight," he said softly. "My hands are not clean. My past doesn't disappear because I gave one merciful order in a ballroom." "I know," I replied. "And I can't promise to love you tomorrow, or next week, or ever, not because you're a monster but because I don't know you yet." He nodded, accepting the words like a sentence he had expected. "So what can we promise?" he asked. I looked around the room that had almost become a crime scene, and instead became a turning point. We start with this, I said. No more lies between us, no more bullets for pride. You keep your promise to protect me, and I'll help you become the man your enemies are afraid you might turn into. And what man is that? He asked quietly. The one who doesn't need a gun to be powerful, I said. The one who walks into a room and instead of making everyone afraid to die, makes them feel safe to live. For a long time he didn't answer. Then he bowed his head just a little, a king laying down his crown for one brief second. As my wife wishes, he murmured. I slipped my hand into his, not because I had to, but because I chose to for now. His fingers closed gently around mine. People tell stories about that night, you know. They talk about the failed hit, the uncle dragged away, the boss who spared the shooter. They whisper that something changed in the city when the girl in black pulled the devil into a dance and came out of it still breathing. But when I remember it, I don't think about the fear or the sniper or the deals made in the shadows. I remember the moment I saw a red dot on a man's forehead, and instead of watching him die, I decided to speak. And how somehow that one whisper was louder than any gunshot. Hey guys, if you're enjoying my videos and want to see more exclusive content, I've got some extra stuff waiting for you over on Patreon. Grinning face with smiling eyes. YouTube is where I share the main content, but Patreon is where I share some members-only videos and bonus content. If that sounds like something you'd enjoy, come join me on Patreon. The link is in the description. Hope to see you there. Red.